that one. Well, talking to anglers who visit Norway, one of the biggest problems a lot seem to have is packing within the 50-pound weight allowance. I've been to Norway many times and I've never ever had a problem getting all my kit within the 50 pounds. What you see in front of me is everything I've brought for the week we've just fished. That's it, and quite a bit of the stuff we haven't actually used. There's a standard 20 to 30 pound class Shimano X-Sage 4-piece boat rod, which I use with a Thorium 20 multiplier. There's a 4-piece Shimano STC spinning rod, medium weight spinning rod, which I use with a Saragossa 5000 reel. A couple of packets of Storm Ultra Shads. I like the 120 gram version for use with the spinning rod. Each one comes with a pre-rigged head and a couple of spare tails. Likewise, a couple of packets of Storm Giant jigging shads. 3 perks. I can't remember the last time I actually used a perk in Norway. Certainly not this trip and certainly not the last trip. It's a box of treble hooks, box of small bits, swivels, links, booms. Couple of spools of leader material. I've got 50, 80 and 200. Filleting knife, a pair of pliers and a multi-tool, and that's pretty much it. Over the years I've heard stories of people running out of fuel at sea and then saying, well, the fuel gauge was showing we still had half a tank. Let me give you a bit of advice. Fuel gauges on small boats never ever work accurately. There's only one way to be absolutely certain how much fuel you've got on board, and that's to actually physically check it. On these Arvors you've got a clear polyurethane tank. You can actually see the level. That is the way to check that you've got enough fuel for the day. And again, my advice would be, no matter how long you're planning on going out, always start off with a full fuel tank. It's always a good idea to get local advice when you're fishing in a new area, and it's the first time I've been to this part of Norway. So I asked the lodge owner this morning for some tips, and he pointed out a few places on the chart. This is one of them, some unpronounceable patch of ground about 6 miles north of the camp. And I've just dropped down a Storm 120 gram Ultra Shad. I've got a fish on straight away. It's not big. I'm guessing it's going to be a codling. But this just shows we're doing something right and in the right general area. And yep, it's another codling. They really do like these shads. Very natural, lovely action on the lure. Let's just get him back in, we're not going to keep him. But very easy to fish, lovely natural action. And they catch a lot of fish. I brought them specifically on this trip for the big coalfish. And hopefully we're going to find a few. But they'll take coalfish, cod, haddock, pretty much anything that'll eat a lure will eat one of these. We've been catching a lot of fish in the sort of 5 to 12 pound range. And the problem's really been there's been too many fish in that size and we haven't been able to get through to them to get the better fish. Well, finally I think I hooked something that's a little bit better than 10 or 12 pounds. I'm still using the 120 gram Storm Ultra Shad. It's a great lure. They're so lifelike and they certainly catch fish. Nodding very powerfully. I mean, all the fish you catch up here in the absolute peak of condition. Lovely, strong, fit, healthy fish. Don't know how many we've caught today, but it's quite a few dozen in just 3 or 4 hours so far. And the thing is, every time you drop a lure in this area, you know you've always got a chance of a halibut. This is definitely a better fish. It's not a huge fish by Norwegian standards. We're on a 9-foot spinning rod and a 5000 size reel. It's certainly a lot of fun. And there's the fish, and It's not a monster. Let's just get it to the boat. And it certainly wanted that lure. It's halfway down its stomach. There we are. Nice fish. No, it's not a mid-double. Maybe 12 pounds, maybe 11, who cares? Beautiful fish, a lot of fun to catch. Let's see if we can get a bigger one. I was using the larger shad and getting lots and lots of plucks and pulls and what were obviously small fish hanging onto the fish's tail, but they're too small to eat the thing. So I thought I'd put my small ultra shad back down on the light spinning rod, play with some small fish, and as you'd expect, I've hooked something that feels a little bit more substantial. It's not a monster, but I think it's a little bit bigger than the average size we've been catching. You know, these waters up here, you really never do know what you're going to hook. I mean, every time you put a lure in the water, you've got a chance of a 50-pound cod or halibut weighing over 100 pound, 200 pound, big coalies. Fantastic area for big coalfish up here. Not seen any in the last couple of days, but last week the camp manager was telling us a lot of fish over 30 pound caught. Every week is different. The trick with these trips is to come and just make the most of what opportunities you get. Look around, listen to what the locals advise you to do. Talk to the crews on the other boats, see what they're catching. Oh, there's a massive fish showing again. There we are. Elephants eat peanuts. It just goes to show us using that giant shad and getting lots of pulls. Couldn't actually hook a fish. Thought I'd drop the little ultra shad down. Bang. Lovely cod. I don't know what it is, 20, 22, 24, 25. Certainly a handful on a little Blue Romance spinning rod. 5,000 size fixed spooled reel, 20 pound braid. Pretty much the sort of gear you use back home for spinning for bass or salmon. But what a lovely fish. It's really crashing and banging on the end of the rod. It's made a few runs. I'd love to think it's a halibut. I really don't know. It might be a small halibut. There's a lot of head banging going on, which would indicate a cod. The only thing I'm certain of is a fish, and here's the leader. Oh, that's nice in the light. There's halibut go. This is an absolute baby. 8 pound, maybe 10 pound. We saw the bend it put in that rod, and the first couple of dives were certainly taking a bit of line off. But this is the main halibut area in northwest Norway. You know, there's fish being caught at this camp well over 200 pounds this year, and the manager was telling us on average they get about 1,000 halibut a year. So we'll unhook this fish, put it back, try and catch one of the better ones. Well, I've been using the Storm Ultra Shad and it's been catching fish very well. In fact, the problem is it's been catching fish too well. There's so many fish here on this reef, or bank we're fishing, and most of them seem to be between sort of 5 and 12 pounds. And that little shad, he goes down and within a few cranks of the handle, there's a fish of that size on it. We know there are bigger fish here, the big cod here, some halibut, big coalfish. And the problem I'm having, as I'm saying, is that the small fish are taking the small shad. So I've switched to my 20 to 30 pound class rod with a big Storm Giant swimming shad on it. And my thinking is that the smaller fish are not going to be able to take it. And if there are any bigger fish on this mark, they've got more chance of actually getting a look in and taking my lure before anything else grabs it. I can feel small fish grabbing the tail, which seems to think that maybe my theory is good. We just have to keep fishing away and see what happens. We were chatting to the camp manager Bjorn earlier, and he was telling us that the area off Torsvag is widely recognised as being the very best area for a lot of species in Norway, particularly the halibut. Big cod as well, lots of coalfish, and they're the three main species that a lot of anglers tend to come here for. If you want to catch the very biggest cod they get in Norway, they're called the scry. They're the ones that migrate inshore from the Barents Sea to spawn. They start moving in around February, but the best months for fishing are March, April, early May. The camp here at Torsvag opens in early March, middle March, specifically to target scry. How big do they go? 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds. In recent years, fish over 100 pounds have been caught by anglers. The world record went not far from where we're fishing. So if you want to catch a seriously huge cod, you should come at the early part of the season. If you're looking just for fantastic fishing, catching lots of fish in the 20-30 pound range, pretty much any time of the year. In the late season, particularly now August through to the end of the season in October, is an excellent time for the halibut. I mean, these are some of the most productive, fertile seas anywhere on earth. This is the 16th year I've been fishing in the far north of Norway, and when I first started to go, there's a fish there eating, and you just see him pulling on the tail of my lure. As I was saying, this is the 16th year I've been fishing in the far north of Norway, and for about the first 8 to 10 years I used to come up here. My bag used to be stuffed full of as many perks as I could fit in to meet my weight allowance. This trip I've brought three small perks, a couple of 12 ounce, and I think the one's about 10 ounce, and I don't really anticipate using them. Like most anglers who fish up here now, I put a lot of faith in these big shads. They tend to hook the fish fairly and cleanly in the corner of the jaw, which gives you a good, strong, secure hook hold. They tend to sort out the better quality fish. They avoid foul hooking fish. They're a lot more sporting, they're a lot more fun to use, they're a lot less physical effort. And at the end of the day, they produce the results, which is what you come here for. A big mistake that a lot of people make when they first start using these rubber shads, they strike to set the hook in a fish. You don't need to strike, but you do need to set the hook. The way to fish them is just lower them down to the bottom and then just retrieve. Slow, medium, fast retrieve. Every day's different. I normally start off with a slow to medium retrieve, and you'll start feeling the fish usually plucking and pulling at the tail of the lure. At that point, whatever you do, just make sure that you continue at exactly the same rate of retrieve. If you speed up, slow down or stop, almost always the fish will lose interest in the lure. Keep winding at exactly the same rate of retrieve, and eventually the fish will inhale the lure and still keep winding at the same rate of retrieve. When the fish has got the lure in its mouth, more often than not it'll turn and dive for the bottom. The rod tip will start to bend over, and you set the hook simply by lifting into the fish. I think that might be a halibut. I've just been working this big storm giant jigging shad over a mark of fish we spotted on the way out. It's actually about a mile away from the mark that I was heading for, but we thought we'd stop and have a look. And within a few minutes I've hooked this. It's definitely a decent sized fish, and the way it took off on the first run, I'm guessing it might be a halibut. Certainly it's a strong fish. It's the best fish I've hooked this trip, that's for certain. And you can see the importance of setting your clutch. There's no way I can stop this fish. It's just going to do its thing. This is a very, very nice fish, whatever it is. I'm definitely putting my money on a halibut. But again, it was a classic take on a shad. A couple of taps on the tail, great temptation to stop or strike or speed up. You've really got to hold your nerve and continue winding at exactly the same rate of retrieve. If the fish wants the lure, it will eventually inhale it. Turn for the bottom, and then you can set the hook by lifting the rod and the single hook will go into the corner of the fish's jaw. Another massive halibut, 50 pounds maybe. I'll take it. This time of the year, August, September, these fish are in an absolute prime. But Torsvag sort of calls itself the Halibut Capital of Norway. They get over 1,000 fish a year, a year at this camp. We've had 3 in 2 days now, and well, what can I say? They claim to be the halibut capital of the world, and there's certainly a lot of halibut here.